Hey everybody, I'm here with Ashwin. We're getting together to just discuss transits within the Sidereal zodiac using the Lahiri Ayanamsha. And we're just going to jump right in and sort of discuss a wide variety of different transits throughout the next few weeks / month. So yeah, cool. Let's do it.
So I mean, astrology of May is quite, it is quite packed with a lot of planets making transits, and we already have Saturn and Jupiter in retrograde motion.
Right.
If you want to know about outer planets, even Pluto is retrograde. So there is a lot of stuff that's going on in the sky, and the first to kind of hit the turn is Mercury moves to Aries on May 4th, which is tomorrow. We are recording this video on 3rd of May. So Mercury moves into Aries on 4th of May, and then Mars moves into Gemini on May 8th. And from there, we have the Mercury-Mars mutual exchange or Parivartana Yoga that works from May 8th. And then we have Venus moving to Aries on May 11th. And then Sun moves into Taurus on May 16th, and Mercury moves into Taurus on May 19th. So Mercury is getting super fast here. Mercury is kind of shifting signs as it used to usually. I mean, Mercury is just moving from one sign to another, that is Aries to Taurus, in just within a span of 15 days or so. So it's going to be a very, a lot of month of happenings, if that is the right word.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess it always is with astrology and transits. There's always some like juicy thing to dig up, and there's not as many people looking at the transits using a sidereal zodiac, at least not in the West. More in India, of course. But I think it's it's just a different way to look at things. It's an energetically different way to look at things, and so. What jumps out at me right now as we're making this is that Moon and Mercury are both conjunct in the final degree of Pisces, basically, right? 29.
Yeah. Do you think it would be good to share the screen right away?
Yeah, sure. Let's share the screen so we can have a better look at that for those, especially for those watching, those tuning in. Cool. So, okay, so this is not today, right? This is
This is today.
Oh, okay. I have Mercury at the last degree of Pisces in my software.
Okay, yeah, I think it's just like it's just a simple glitch and differences between softwares, but still, effectively, Mercury is just making a move, and that is the most important thing. Where Mercury joins Moon, which is a culmination of logical and emotional mind, along with the new moon that is going to happen effectively tomorrow, that is May 4th. So, Lars, something about the new moon as it is in Aries.
Okay, just real quick, what time do you have this set for? Is it for right now, or?
I mean, it's right now. We can just move it from here.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. Yeah, so with like Moon and Mercury going into Aries, or having just entered into Aries, like in a sense we have the beginning of a new cycle, a new phase in terms of the 12 sign and 27 nakshatra cycles, right? So I just think that's interesting on a side note that like we're just making the video right now, like with these two planets having just moved into Ashwini, so that's kind of cool. But what does interest me is that we have an exalted sun, and in another like few days we're going to have an exalted moon as well, and we have an exalted Venus.
Sure.
So that's pretty cool. Like we've got 3 exalted planets, and then I don't think Jupiter and Saturn will get into their own signs while we have these exalted planets, but yeah, we've got potentially 3 exalted planets coming up. So that's kind of just I don't know, that just makes me think about like, on a general level, whoever's going to be born during that time, is going to have these like really auspicious placements. But like for the rest of us, for that brief like 3.5 day period where the moon is also exalted and we have these 3 exalted planets. You can think of like obviously matters pertaining to like creativity and inspiration, matters pertaining to like comforts and the mind and so on, and comforts containing like or stuff relating to conveyances and luxuries and love and even possibly charity, being at like all these things being at a high. And the sun is basically going to be, sun and Mercury are basically going to be buffeted by 2 exalted benefics for a few days there. So, what is that? That's a Shubha yoga that's going to be happening basically because, Mars, when did you say Mars goes into Gemini?
Mars moves into Gemini on 8th of May.
8th of May? Okay, so, I'm not sure. Mars might still be there when this sort of Shubha yoga thing is happening. So, we can just move it. Yeah, and can you move it like one more? Okay, cool. So this is when we'll have like the full-on Shubha yoga of the Sun Mercury, right? Where Mars is not in this sign, and this stuff will be strengthened because Mercury and Mars are exchanging signs. So this is
I think that is a very encouraging factor because I know people are kind of intimidated about the fact that Mars is conjoining Rahu, opposing Saturn and Ketu, but that kind of left apart for a separate discussion. But I think Mars and Mercury exchange is an encouraging factor as it is, because there is an exchange between, planets in Aries and Gemini. So I really kind of find it encouraging.
Right, exactly. So it's but what does it mean? I guess like I'm having trouble finding the words to describe it. But this Shubha yoga and this Parivartana yoga, ultimately I see these things as like heavily strengthening the Sun Mercury, which are in Buddha Ditya yoga. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Buddha Ditya yoga, which is basically Mercury Sun conjunct. And there's, Mercury is not combust, and there's reception even if he was, because it's the Sun's exaltation. So this is like a very brief window of a day, which maybe I'm focusing a little too much on, but it just kind of excites me. This is like a very brief window in which, anybody could do something that would be really invigorating and enlightening for their creative journey, for their soul, which is really like our inspiration, our vision, our purpose for being here, and it will theoretically be supported. So like this is sort of a down and dirty little election for just doing something where you're going to be like completing projects or laying out plans for the future, right?
Yeah, sure.
You might find like some great support naturally, like things will probably flow very naturally. And Venus and the moon are in a 3-11 relationship, which is also a very auspicious relationship, right? They're sextile is another way we could put it. So that's like a nice, in Tajika Jyotish, they sometimes call that like a hidden friendship, so to speak. So so it's kind of like taking the time, taking the day to like do something that's really going to be like very, very good for you in terms of your long-term vision and goals, So if you're watching this and you have something that you really want to like begin related to that area of your life, like your individuality and vision of reality, right? This is the day. Like this is the day to do it. Just do it on this day. You said this is May 9th or?
This is May 7th.
May 7th. Yes. Great. So this is like a good day to do that. And that's a Tuesday, which is a Mars day. So we even have, Mars getting an extra activation here. Again, Mars, Mercury exchanging signs, just adding to the overall vigor and strength of whatever you may set your mind to do. And so again, this is like also a good day to like relinquish and burn away things that are holding you back.
Sure.
like because Agni is really emphasized here with Aries, Mars, and Sun. It's Agni. It's purification of your ideas, of your mental patterns, which is Mercury, and
Hmm.
and so on. So like we really have this like super interesting. I just think this is super interesting, I guess. So
Sure. I think you also gave an election, which is pretty good because we have Venus exalted, Sun exalted, and Moon is also exalted with a nice mutual exchange between Mercury and Mars. And I've already done a video on Mercury Mars mutual exchange, and if you have not seen that, I'd surely recommend that to.
cool.
I'd surely recommend people to check that out. I hope you can find something interesting there. And I think the first major transit asset is Mercury in Aries. So, but Mercury is already in Aries and Mercury is placed in Ashwini Nakshatra. So, anyway, Mercury will kind of leave Ashwini Nakshatra in another 3 or 4 days as it is, and kind of will start separating from Sun. So, as and when Mercury starts separating from Sun, the the reception from Mercury, reception that Mercury receives from Sun is probably going to kind of diminish, which is
Sure.
not necessarily a bad thing, but it is that kind of a thing where Mercury will again get close because Sun is already in greater degrees of Aries. So Mercury will probably lose its complete vicinity from Sun only when it moves into Taurus. So I just hope that Mercury's stay in Aries is actually good because Mercury is the natural third lord ruler of Gemini, and Virgo kind of brings in a lot of dominance in communication, command over language, and skills to kind of take over any conversation uh, and kickstart something new, especially like in terms of communicating something to others, either at work or at domestic environment, and it really doesn't matter where it is. And with Mercury already placed with Sun and getting close to Sun, as Lars mentioned, there is Buddhaditya Yoga, and it's a very good time to be confident because there is a lot of prominence in Aries, which kind of directly uh, signifies dominance, and there is also the 311 relationship, that is the sextile relationship between Mars and Mercury.
Yeah.
Despite, apart from the mutual exchange, so that also kind of works in a favorable side because of the 311 relationship, which is quite auspicious. Any planet that is placed 11th from another planet is always kind of going to do good in various forms of techniques. Even Bhavat Bhavan says the same thing. So there's a lot of things to kind of cheer about, even when Saturn and Jupiter are retrograde. And I'm
Yeah.
sure personal planets bring a lot of inner feeling or experiences that you can find very encouraging over a period of time that is actually turning out to be quite frustrating. So the good placements of personal planets such as Venus, Sun, Mercury, and Moon is going to kind of take the slide forward.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a okayish period, not as bad as you would imagine, and as bad as how people are fearing about Mars and Rahu conjunction or Saturn and Ketu
Sure.
conjunction. There is a lot more to do, more than just this. But I think it is worth doing a video on Mars, Rahu, and Saturn, Ketu, because that is a very important phenomenon. But to really understand what it kind of brings out, I think it is necessary to kind of dig in deep. So, do you think we should just talk about Venus in Aries for a moment? Because
Yeah.
Venus will
Well,
move
let
into
me.
Aries
Yeah.
May 8th.
Okay, yeah, let me also say a couple other things that came to mind too. Like while there's the Parivartana yoga between Mercury and Mars, like we also want to think about bold speech, bold action.
Exactly.
Like and especially with the sun involved too. Like when the sun leaves, it'll be a little less intense, but yeah, speaking one's mind. This is like a time
Exactly.
to speak one's mind, not hold back, because otherwise, if you don't speak one's mind, if you don't speak your mind when there's Mercury Mars contacts, what can happen is that um, resentment and anger and things like that can build up and can come out as like passive aggressive, as making bad jokes, because of
I mean,
passive aggressiveness, of
yeah,
being duplicitous, because you start creating a false mental picture of what's going on in your head, of like, oh, well, this person's probably just trying to screw me over, and they're probably trying to think like this and do this, and so I'm going to do this. And especially as Mars gets closer to Rahu,
okay.
and especially when the lights go off in your house, like they just yeah. No, but like seriously, because Mars Rahu can be extremely paranoid and violent. They're not very close right now in what we're looking at, but obviously they will get closer
Closer.
and closer
And
as
I
time
think
goes
that
on.
happens in sometime late May or June. So,
Yeah.
well,
Okay. Yeah, like the exact conjunction or whatever.
yeah.
So let's move on, like you said, to Venus moving into Aries. That is, obviously Venus is very auspiciously placed right now, not only because it's in Revati, but because it's
It,
exalted and near its exaltation degree for those who pay attention to that.
sure.
Revati is like one of the most auspicious nakshatras from what I understand. Although correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm still learning the nakshatras.
Okay. So there is also one more important thing where Venus is just applying to a square. I mean, just about. Separating from a square with Saturn and applying to a very close square to Ketu as we are doing this video. But the good news is that Venus is applying to a trine with Jupiter in Scorpio. So
Yes,
and
that's nice.
Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces, and it is probably one of the most auspicious things. And on May 7th, as you see, Moon is also applying to an opposition to Jupiter, so which is again a very good thing. And another good news is that Moon is not. Moon is an aversion to Mars and Saturn, which makes May 7th, as Lars gave an election, it's probably one of the best times to kind of ponder upon something new, or if you have something new in your mind. I think that this is one of the good times to, lay your foot on it with a more stronger hold. So,
Yeah,
and as Venus moves into Aries, Venus is, Venus is not really in a very dignified position when it's placed in Aries,
sure.
and Venus will also be in conjunction with Sun, even though it is far off conjunction, but still Venus and Sun will be in the same territory, so it's to be counted as a whole sign conjunction.
Sure.
But and it's also a detriment for Venus. But again, to bring out some of the positive sides, Aries is the natural first house of the Kala Purusha, and Venus in Aries kind of gives a lot more sense and attraction. Self-attraction, where we kind of take care more about ourselves. There is a lot of motivation. We are more concerned about our physical self and how we kind of present ourselves on a
Sure.
public forum when we are in a dominant position, or something like that. And the gist of this position is that Venus is not really that comfortable, but still Venus can do well in Aries, because Aries is the natural first house. And given the fact about Venus's significations as to presenting one's own self from a physical point of view, I think Venus in Aries is one of the best positions that you can find, and that is one of the most encouraging and positive signs with which you can lead the way when Venus is in Aries. So I think that's pretty much about what Venus in Aries. But still, the downside is that we might need to kind of understand that compassion is also one of the most important things. Aries is not something that kind of promotes compassion in human beings, but Venus is
Yeah.
something that kind of promotes compassion amongst human beings. And if it is that kind of a period where you really don't want to forget that you need to have some compassion and empathy towards other feelings, and and especially given the fact that there is again a 311 relationship between Mars and Venus. Mars is the ruler of Aries, and there will be a sextile relationship and reception where Venus will apply with Mars, which kind of might overshadow the natural Venusian qualities, because Venus might perform in a more masculine manner with that kind of a connection with Mars. So it is important to kind of understand that we need to have some kind of compassion and empathy towards fellow human beings, and also Venus is not applying to Jupiter, which is yet another uh, kind of thing to I mean, it is a concern because Venus only applies to Mars, and we really want to get into action, and we really want to do something from a very physical and a domestic point of view. So it's important to kind of stay calm as well.
Can we look at the actual chart for when Venus goes into Aries? Can we try to find that, at least roughly? Okay. Oh, I think you went too far.
No, I'm just trying to find out when Venus kind of makes an exact aspect with Mars.
Oh, I was thinking just when it moves into Aries, because I want to see where the moon will be.
Okay.
Okay, that's close enough. Yeah. So the moon will be in Cancer, which is nice.
Beautiful.
In Pushya Nakshatra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Pushya is like a really auspicious nakshatra as well. It's really nourishing. You know, it's the nakshatra that the yogi point is calculated from for people who use that point. And it's sort of like Pushya. I think of Pushya as like where you're going to find like nourishment and abundance spiritually, and thus also like mentally, emotionally, physically. But like my book that I have here on Tibetan astrology, which I quite like, says this lunar mansion has to do with the bringing forth of renewed spiritual energy through prayer, meditation, and any kind of ritual worship, creating good karma. So it just gives like a very basic description of the nakshatra. But yeah, I think it's like generally speaking, this kind of reemphasizes what you were already saying about Venus moving into Aries and how we need to like sort of have more like be aware of compassion, not get too carried away, like losing our sense of harmony to conflicts and whatnot.
Sure.
And of course, also with Venus and Aries, this is like a situation in where you have a person who wants peace, Venus, in a sign that is about like motion and confrontation and sometimes war, right? A Mars sign. So Venus in Aries can sort of be in some ways like inappropriate, like trying to bring solutions to bear that require like bold action, but trying to bring solutions that are just like no guys, let's not like fight, let's not have conflict, like and then that creates more conflict is the problem, because it's like an inappropriate solution. Like for example, the other day where I work, this kid was having an explosion of anger. Like he was pissed, he was yelling and screaming. And my coworkers, God bless their hearts, like they just did not know what to do, and they just kept trying to calm him down, and he kept screaming at them, "Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Like I just want to be alone." And when they left him alone, he calmed down, but it took them forever to just listen to him. Just listen to what he was saying. And like, of course, Venus is still, this is later on, like, but my point is like that episode kind of reminds me of some of what we're talking about here. Like Venus in Aries is like that person who's trying to like make things like soothe things when they really just need to like burn out on their own, right? Like it's the doctrine of like non-interference, where sometimes you just like, you can't save a burning building. You can't always save like a burning structure. Like sometimes it just has to burn down. Sure. Right? Like sometimes a forest fire releases the seeds that will actually help the ecosystem renew itself. So
indeed.
So anyway, that's kind of a far cry from Pushya, but like I think Pushya is interesting here as the moon being in Pushya, because it kind of it could arguably set a tone for Venus's
prosperity
through Aries. Yeah, like this tone of prosperity, and like, Venus in not only Aries but Ashwini, which is a very quick, fast nakshatra, is like very much also about like a type of nourishment in a sense, because the Ashwini twins are healers. Yeah, they're the great physicians of the gods, and they come quickly when you ask for their aid and that kind of a thing. So there is really this theme of like the two feminine planets being in like spiritually nurturing nakshatras, kind of setting the tone for Venus's movement through Aries. And so again, this is kind of like a contradiction, of course, because Cancer is the place where Mars is debilitated, and Mars is
Sure.
fairly close to his debilitation point. So he doesn't have any Ucha Bala, which is
Yeah.
a strength of being close to exaltation. So
Mm.
anyway, like, yeah, where does this all take us? I'm kind of just
Uh,
meandering here, but do you have anything to say about these, like this relationship of like Pusha and Cancer?
I think Pusha is a very interesting zone, even though it is ruled by Saturn.
Yeah,
Pusha,
it is very strange, huh?
uh, Punarvashu is the starting point of Cancer, but still Pusha kind of signifies growth and prosperity in many ways, and um, I think it kind of signifies or lays or establishes a platform for any kind of growth or something like that. And baby with a mother and baby getting nourished is actually a sign of growth. So I think Pusha is, I mean, it symbolically says that you need to kind of grow compassion with Venus is in Aries and forming a square with Moon, which is very good. Do you think we should just talk something about Venus square Moon? Because I think that kind of promotes compassion and it kind of shifts as it is squares kind of uh, play a pivotal role in terms of shifting our mind to something where Venus, when it gets into Aries, kind of forgets compassion, and it is being overshadowed by the vicinity of Sun and sextile with Mars, and also
Sure.
Rahu is also placed in Gemini. But still, suddenly when Moon moves into its own sign of
Cancer.
nourishment, and
Yeah.
yeah, Cancer, where Moon and Venus kind of come into aspects, a lot of good things gets promoted, and the
Yeah.
speed suddenly, the speed with which we are going in our lives will suddenly get slowed down, and slowed down for all good reasons. You might just want to take care of yourself, and you might want to just look after your domestic circumstances and enjoy your domestic benefits that you have during that point of time, and kind of be openly compassionate to your close mates like family or friends. It's I think this particular square relationship kind of indicates something similar or close to that, especially because of the fact that Jupiter is also aspecting Moon. If you look here, Jupiter
Yeah.
is aspecting Moon, so
Right.
that is one of the most, it's an encouraging point.
Yeah.
Even though Venus is in aversion to Jupiter, Jupiter aspects Moon, and Moon kind of forms an aspect with Venus, which is very very good and encouraging uh,
Yeah.
for compassion. So if you forgot compassion, don't worry, you'll just kind of be remembered by yourself
Sure.
to kind of, yeah. So I think we should just move a bit more from compassion and
Okay, cool.
if you
Yeah. And as we talked about, like when we made a video a while back on did a yogi take birth?
yeah,
Like Jupiter was in the same kind of area, and Jupiter is extremely auspicious right now because in the Navamsha it's in Pisces.
exactly.
Jupiter is extremely auspicious, and this is more of like Jupiter in watery signs is like a more mellow Jupiter. It's more mystical Jupiter. Jupiter in Sagittarius wants to like do dharma, do one's duty, like be a hero, be successful. But Jupiter in water signs is the yogi, the yogi, the brahmana, like meditating and like studying and practicing like jnana yoga and stuff like that. So um yeah, Jupiter's retrograde, but that's okay. It's just like, yeah, like you're saying, there's like a powerful, and Jupiter's aspecting its own sign and its own exaltation from Scorpio. So
Exactly.
there is an empowering, like nourishing scenario here with Venus moving through Aries, where even though there may be like conflicts and like uh, maybe too quick decisions made concerning love, there's also the potential to like find the nourishment that you need, right? Like if Venus moving through Aries poses a difficult time for some people, because it will, not because it's like
Sure.
it's not horrible in Aries, but it's just,
Yeah, of course.
it's out of phase. It's in the 12th from Taurus too. It's in the 12th from its own sign. It's in the 7th from its other sign. So, this is a situation where Venus is over overactive, impatient. It breeds impatience. It breeds some anxiousness, some like flirtatiousness and stuff like that, some sort of like risk taking, which is okay, but it's not very stable in terms of like self-care and self-love. So we need to be like paying attention to our needs with the moon and Jupiter stuff while Venus transits Aries. That's kind of the basic thing I think I wanted to say. Yeah, just taking care of our needs, and it's not so auspicious and not, or at least not so easy to have Saturn and Ketu in the ninth from any sign. Like Saturn, Ketu in the ninth is, it's just kind of in general like a challenging thing. It may be like, the mentality of like, why is God doing this to me? Like if you have a difficult time in your relationship, in your marriage, in your love life, in anything related to Venus, there might be a tendency to be like, why is God doing this to me? And it's important to remember that like God doesn't do anything to us, that we do everything, and like, cosmic law allows things to happen. So if we ask God for help, he'll help us. If we blame God and curse God, then God will appear to us as like somebody who's not helping us, because that's how we're quantifying and qualifying God, so it's all based on our own mind and actions. And it's easy to forget this. Like I'm guilty of it for sure, so I'm saying this for myself as much as I'm saying it for anyone else that's watching this. But yeah, be wary of like feeling like, God is absent while Venus transits through Aries.
Sure, and as you said, Jupiter is not really in a bad dignity. If you look, I think I work very closely with decans, and Jupiter is placed in, Jupiter will be placed in Cancer in third decan, which is the third decan of Scorpio. So, and there is a lot of fine energy that's going on with this particular transit of, in support of Venus's position in Aries and Moon's position in Cancer itself. So I think the next important transit is Sun's movement into
Taurus. Yeah, sure.
Taurus. Yeah. Sun's movement. I think Mars and Gemini. Do you want to talk something about Mars and Gemini?
Oh, like we already kind of talked about it briefly, and I feel like people, maybe we'll do another video where we talk about its conjunction with Rahu or something. That'll be sort of where things heat up. But again, Mars in Gemini, in any mercurial sign or associating with Mercury, can create like really like a very quick mind, quick learning, a versatile and tenacious learning curve or skill set. Right,
multitasking.
So very good for breaking new ground. Mercury is about inventiveness, and Mars and Rahu are planets that help Mercury to break new ground and that kind of a thing. So it's good for all of those things, but it's also the dark side of it, like I said, is being duplicitous, like letting paranoia sink in and stuff like that. Not being passive aggressive, like not speaking one's mind. Becoming like kind of obsessive compulsive or like fidgety, like really fidgety, like can't keep your hands off stuff, things like that. Just like, so being aware of like more caustic kind of mentalities as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I think that kind of suffices Mars in Gemini, and as you said, we might make a separate video on Mars, Rahu, and Saturn, Ketu kind of stuff, which is very telling. But I think that's for a separate video. So the next important transit is Sun moving into Taurus on May 16th. And see, I think it's a very important transit for Sun because Sun is moving from its sign of exaltation and is moving into a not so friendly sign. But still, I really don't kind of fix Sun to a specific friendly or non-friendly sign, particularly because it is a major luminary.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Sun kind of has a lot of, qualities, and Sun kind of helps us visualize a lot of things when it is placed in different signs.
Yeah.
And Sun moving from a fire sign to an earth sign and cardinal to a fixed sign. I think we are just carrying. I mean, it is that kind of a phase where we want to summon all the things that we kind of acquired in Aries. We just want to put it all at one place and have things stabilized. Sun in Taurus will help us kind of stabilize things, and Taurus is all about fixated stuff. Not just because Taurus is a fixed sign, but Taurus is that same kind of that kind of a sign. It kind of promotes being in control in a fixed manner and not Taurus. I mean, it's not really open to change. Any planet that is placed in Taurus will kind of give us a quality where we kind of remain fixated based upon that particular topic the house signifies, and also the basic significations of the planet. So there is a lot more tendency for ourselves to become fixed and stable in many ways. However, there is a little bit of stereotypism where things turn pretty monotonous because of the fixated nature, and there is always very single focus point when Sun is placed in Taurus. And as I already said, we kind of summon everything at one place, and we have a very one-sided vision, and that is probably we need to kind of be open to brainstorming sessions. And it is not that only you can do things; people can also do things as well. So.
Sure.
And it is not necessarily good for those people. I mean, I don't mean to say bad for those people, but this is not a period that people who like change or people who like to get going, it's not a welcome move for those people, because I mean, it is good for those people who have some predetermination or predefined focus in their life, where it will help them to visualize more about what they're doing in their lives and how they're kind of doing in their lives. Yeah.
Ashwin, can we just go and get the chart of like at least roughly 0 degrees Taurus Sun?
Sorry, I just forget this.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So is this okay?
Let's go back one more. Okay, that should do it. Yeah, I think that's fairly close. So the moon will be roughly there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So like the sun, as the sun moves from Aries into Taurus, like Aries is a Rajasic sign, right? So it's like a sign of activity, a sign of just doing things. Okay. So when the sun moves into Taurus, we get a Tamasic sign. And Tamas is not bad. A lot of people have this misconception that like Tamas is a bad energy. The gunas are not good or bad. They just are what they are. And Tamas is all about inertia, but not in a negative sense. Again, it's about inertia in the sense of gathering and focusing energy around a fixed center, right? So Taurus is all about, if Aries is all about like bold, assertive action and just like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Taurus is like anchoring that. Taurus is the natural second house, right? It's where that gets anchored. Like, okay, if you want to do all this stuff, like, how do you get the resources to do it? Like, this is reality now. So the sun doesn't like to be in Taurus because of that. The sun likes to be in the fire signs mainly because there the sun is uninhibited. He can just be like naturally who he is, which is this like powerhouse of force that it doesn't matter where his light falls. But in Taurus, it starts to matter because it's an earth sign and it's the second from Aries and so on. So, it's interesting though, of course, because like, the sun is in fiery Kritika for the first like 10 degrees or so of Taurus, right? So it goes into Kritika in the last few degrees of Aries. And then, so I mean, Kritika is very, very fiery though itself
it's an engineering sign.
Yeah. But if you think about what's so interesting, if you think about like Kritika and its association with Agni and its association with like, the different fire rituals, right? We have I think it's called, what is it? The Agni Hota? How do you say it?
Agnihotra.
Agnihotra, yeah. Which is where you do this elaborate, it's not that elaborate, but it's like you basically are like burning cow dung and making vibhuti out of it, which is so you're transmuting the energy of the cow dung into this like holy ash. And so that's a very like Taurus Kritika thing. Taurus Agni, you know, the cow Taurus, or the cow dung, I should say, right? And then the transmutation of the earth into something pure and usable, right? Like you may have the idea to do this. You may have the fire itself in Aries, but what do you throw into that fire, right? Well, you throw in things like ghee and cow dung, and like I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff in Vedic rituals that you would throw into the fire for, depending on what you were doing, right? So sorry, that was like a really long sort of
I think that's fine. I think it's a very good kind of I mean, it's good to talk about some of those things which can act as an archetype.
Yeah, but what is happening with the sun here? The sun is actually we're getting Vesi and Vasi yogas, and I forget which is which, but basically the planets that the sun moves towards in the second sign, which is really just Mars because the nodes don't really count in this estimation, are about to be burnt up. So according to Yavana Jataka, these planets are very actually weakened by the fact that the sun is moving toward them. Am I saying that right? Or oh no, maybe I'm not. Wait. Yeah, no, I'm saying that right, because the sun's going to move faster than Mars, so it's going to catch up to Mars, and Mars will be combust. Whereas the planets in the sign before the sun are generally considered to be auspicious, and in the case of Venus and Mercury, we have to be careful because sometimes these planets can, you know, overtake the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
But in this context, we know that Venus is not overtaking the sun at this point, so Venus is getting strengthened, actually, and Mercury, I'm not totally sure. I'd have to look at his speed and stuff.
No, Mercury will run away, and Mercury will overtake Sun in a few days. Like, it's already done.
Okay, so this is not auspicious for Mercury, but it's auspicious for Venus. So if we go back to that chart, so basically Mercury and Mars are going to be consumed by the sun's fire pretty soon. So they're going to be thrown into the fires of Agni, because the sun always represents Agni no matter what. And that's not so bad for Mars, because Mars is like Mars and Mercury are the planets that when they're combust, there's an exception, because Mercury is always so close to the sun. So he never really gets fully harmed by the sun's combustion. And Mars does get harmed, but Mars recovers very quickly because Mars is fiery. That's how I look at it, at least. And so, but Venus is getting strengthened on account of this. I forget if it's Vesi or Vasi yoga. I always get them confused, but
Vasi yoga.
Vasi.
Uh-huh.
So Venus is getting strengthened by the Vasi yoga. It's also getting strengthened by the fact that Venus is in the sun's exaltation and the sun is in Venus's sign. So there's like a type of, it's not a full Parivartana yoga, but it's what they call a mutual reception, or rather generosity, mutual generosity in the medieval period. Two planets exchanging any kinds of dignities, especially powerful dignities like these. So yeah, what the heck does this mean? You know, again, like I'm giving so much technical analysis, but like, what does it really mean? Well, we should look at the moon, right? The moon is in Hasta Nakshatra, which I know is good for working with one's hands. For a few,
I mean, giving shape to something that already doesn't have shape. So very, very good for creativity, and very good for planting things or something like that.
Yeah, Varaha Ramira says when the moon is in Hasta, the person has active habits, is full of resources, is shameless and merciless, and is a thief and drunkard.
Oh my God.
So Hasta's symbol is the hand, and its presiding deity is Savitri or Surya, the sun. And
Savitri.
Yeah, Savitri is an interesting manifestation of the sun deity. Savitri is kind of like this solar hero type being. I forget all the details about Savitri, but this is like a very like auspicious kind of situation if you think about it, of like Hasta and Kritika being the nakshatras emphasized, and the moon is in a trine from the sun, which is very auspicious, waxing, right? They're both in earthy signs. So I think that, like, again, everything we already said, like gathering resources, like putting things together, inventiveness, and adaptability are going to be heavily emphasized with this sun transit through Taurus, simply because of where the moon is and where everything else is, like we're saying. But this is a period where, we're also going to be like, we should be practical, and we should also burn away and offer things that we don't need anymore. So this is, especially with Virgo emphasized, the sign of service. This is especially a good period for the full 30 days or so that the sun is in Taurus, where we can take advantage of these energies by doing things like not only focusing a bit more on our health and our routine and taking better care of ourselves, but also service, some kind of service. And this can also be like giving away things to people, or helping your friends like organize their house if they're cluttered, or cooking for friends, or just doing things like gardening, like community gardening. I'm fortunate that I live in a small community right now where we're doing a lot of gardening together, right? So this is like very auspicious for like me and my community friends, like working together, doing some gardening. With Saturn in aspect and Mars in aspect to that moon, there's going to be a lot of intensity. Saturn does represent the service kind of stuff. But Mars represents, again, kind of like being impatient, and sort of, the fact that the sun will consume Mars in its fire in, I don't know, another maybe 40, 50 days, right? There's kind of an urgency. So there's potentially, again,
nervousness, a sense of urgency.
Impatience and things like that. But it is, it's just, again, it's a very good opportunity for like a powerful purification. I don't know. And like, with fire burns, like there's no way around that. But it's like, once you step into the fire, and get over the pain, right, it could be a very plentiful, bountiful kind of period of time. So
bountiful.
Bountiful.
Okay, so and the other important fact is that Mars will move into Mrigashira Nakshatra. I mean, it's already in Mrigashira. Sorry, I wanted to mention Ardra, and there is an interesting connection like that. I try to understand the analogy of Ardra and the exact opposite sign being Mula. Mula is that particular sign which kind of reminds us of our roots, while Ardra is that particular sign where it gives us an opportunity to kind of destroy all the illusions around us, and it's kind of circling illusions above us, and we are not really looking at the greater truth, and that is what Mars is going to help us break. And Mars is a planet of action. Mars is already a fiery planet with a lot of dryness, and it is surely going to kind of help us break a lot of illusions and destroy. How do we kind of utilize a destructive energy into a constructive energy? And I think we can give in to illusions and be addicted to something bad, or we can also choose to break the illusions and try to see what is ahead, and which is basically the right way to move along, especially with Mercury making quick moves to its own sign and forming various aspects with Mars. So, and what is the other thing? I think the other major... Sorry, you wanted to say something?
I just was reminded too that like as Mars moves from Mrigashira into Ardra, which it's going to do fairly soon after this sun's entry into Taurus, right? Like we really do have this idea of like, Mrigashira is associated with the myth where Brahma lusted after his own daughter, right? And in the form of a deer. And then Shiva shoots off one of his heads. So it's like I think it's like the fifth head of Brahma gets shot off is like what happens. And Sun in Taurus, Venus Taurus is a very like sensual, passionate sign, desiring, things like sex or things that make us feel good. So there's this, with this shift from Mars in Mrigashira into Ardra, you know, Ardra is kind of the sorrow that comes after your desires being denied or frustrated, or the aftermath of kind of these unchecked desires and pursuits. And these desires are not necessarily bad in and of themselves, but the problem is most of us are not honest about things like lust and desire, right? We think that lust is love many times, and then we put ourselves down for being lustful when it's actually just a perfectly natural human emotion to experience lust. But like Tilopa said, Tilopa was a great Buddha from India. Tilopa said the problem is not enjoyment, the problem is attachment, right? So so we do kind of have this theme of like, again, like frustrated desires, sorrow over not getting what you want, impatience, impetuousness, like raging, like I want it my way, like the, you know, like the bratty kid or whatever that like throws a fit and goes into a rage because they didn't get their candy, or they didn't get to see the movie they wanted, or, you know, they're just not getting their way for some reason. Well, translating that into the adult world, you know, like we may want it our way, which is a very Mars thing to do. I want it this way because this is what I'm set on, right? But we're going to find that that's not being supported with the sun's transit through Taurus. You know, so that's a theme as well for this period, this like roughly 30 to 50 day period, you know, I'm going to estimate.
Sure.
And when Mars does get to Rahu, like later on or whatever, you know, that's a period of time where, like, for people who don't get their shit together with regard to experiencing these kind of themes, because not everyone will experience them, but a lot of people will, then that's going to be like a major blow. You know, that's going to be like, that's the type of thing, like your house metaphorically burning down, you know, like you're raging, and then you're not getting your way. So you're sorrowful and you're raging even more. And then Rahu's going to come in and it's like a train just like running you over, you know, it's
Sure.
like wake up, right? It's, there's a saying, God tickles you with a feather to wake you up. If that doesn't work, he starts throwing bricks.
Okay.
So Rahu is kind of like the brick in the face there, you know?
Sure. I think
Rahu doesn't screw around. Rahu, in Tibetan myth, Rahu or Rahula, Rahu Ketu, is cosmic fire.
Rahula. Yeah.
It's cosmic fire. It's the deity that becomes, when the deity becomes a dharma protector in Buddhism, that deity is the deity that's propitiated to remove the negative effects of planetary influences. So all things are consumed and transmuted and destroyed by Rahula, who is like, in a sense, it's another version of Agni, but it's like an active Agni. It's an Agni that seeks out bullshit, right? It's not an Agni that just sits there and you like go and gently throw things into. This is an Agni that like seeks you out. You know, this is like a raging fire dragon or fire demon that's like coming after you to burn away your impurities, right?
That's great. I think that kind of fits in very well with Ardra Nakshatra and current transit of Mars. And also the opposition with Saturn and Ketu, I think that gives a clear context of how we need to exactly interpret Mars's current position with Rahu and in Ardra Nakshatra and also Gemini. So, I think...
Pay attention to your siblings too, relationships with your siblings with this Mars stuff, since Mars rules siblings, right? If you have, you know, like, especially like young adolescent, like not quite in puberty, but like adolescent, raucous, you know, if you have sons and you're watching this, like, and they're raucous and adolescent, like, you should pay attention to them for sure. And I mean, ultimately too, like Mars is Skanda, Kartikeya as well, according to Jaimini. So, you know, here Skanda is meeting Durga. Skanda is meeting Durga. Rahu is Durga. So when that happens, it's like, you know, Skanda may think that he's the shit, right? But if he gets too arrogant, like Durga's going to put him in his place.
Okay. Okay, so I think we have given a very close, I mean, not a close, but a very good summary of what this month has to offer in terms of planetary movements. And we see that a lot of personal planets are making good move. And yeah, I think that kind of brings us towards the end of this month's astrology, I mean, forecast or transit or whatever you may call it.
Great. I just want to say one more thing too. Like, we have emphasized like the more personal planets in these transits because Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde, and Saturn's conjoined Ketu. So in a sense, like, things are decaying. There's no limitations because the limitations are being obscured. Jupiter retrograde and in Scorpio can also be people are just not doing the right thing. Like people are collectively. So until those planets both go direct, get their shit together and move into their own signs, we're not necessarily going to see a lot of progress or fruits being born with regard to things like social endeavors, business, like family endeavors and stuff like that. We want to these personal planets is about doing like the more personal work, the more inner work. It's not so much about like the money level and like the concrete level of Jupiter, Saturn. That's going to come more naturally when those planets stop being retrograde, and then when they of course go into their own signs, we're going to be able to get more into the concrete social aspect of whatever we're working on now. So this is definitely a month to do more like personal work, get your own affairs in order as best you can, so that when these outer planets go, or not outer, but these slower planets go direct, you're ready for like the serious foundational stuff in terms of like bringing yourself more fully into the world. If you're somebody that's working toward that, if you have a business or if you have like something you're working towards at your job, like don't worry so much about that stuff right now. It's not really going anywhere. It's sort of recalibrating. It's resetting. It's like rebooting your modem. Like sometimes your internet goes out, you just got to reboot your modem.
Calibrating is a very calibrating is a very good word. So I was reading one of the articles. I think you also saw that article where it was written by Kieran Devlin, one of my friends from UK. He used and emphasized the word of calibrate in the context of Saturn's retrograde. So it is just that we are kind of moving around with not being at one particular place. It's kind of all over the place kind of thing, but it is important to kind of calibrate and look out for which is the exact position to be at inertia or at rest, so that we have better view of things in terms of what lies in future and what we are going to leave behind. So talking about leaving behind, I think we'll leave all the negative aspects behind and take what is positive. Let's not worry about what Rahu, Mars and Saturn, Ketu has to offer. I'm sure there is a lot of purification and rectifications that are in we are en route to so many purifications and rectifications, not necessarily from a physical or a mentally traumatic point of view, but also from a lot of positive point of view as well, because Sagittarius is the house of Dharma and Gemini is right opposite to it. So there is a lot of energy that kind of flows in terms of helping us get into a right way or to follow the path of righteousness or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Well said. And I had also mentioned, Venus and the Sun are strengthening each other for a little bit there with, them being in each other's dignities. And I didn't really say how that might manifest, but that's like, to me, that's sort of showing when like things start to cool down with regard to Venus and Aries. That'll be like a more relaxed period, I think, a more nourishing period, even back, going back to Pushya. So it's really just like the first kind of bit of Venus in Aries kind of being really tempestuous and intense potentially. And then like the
Yeah.
rest of it, you know, it at least gets a break there. And then, you know, obviously we're not analyzing every aspect and every little detail, but I just wanted to mention that briefly. And yeah, otherwise, you know, have a great May. I'm probably going to forget most of the things that we talked about, ironically. And like, I'll probably come back and be like, hey guys, I told you to do this. And like, I totally forgot to do it. But don't, you know, don't follow my actions. Like, listen to what I've said. And if it resonates with you, then, you know, do something with it. So I'll do my best to also heed my own words and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of applicable to me as well. We don't really kind of go back to see what he said, or we don't really kind of not even close to trying to follow what we said or what we hear. So as you said, I think wish you all a good month of May, and we'll see you for June month transits for both Celestial Vibes and Heavenly Branches by Lars. So thank you so much.